What's going on? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this video, we're going to be talking about PulseChain and more specifically the PLS to ETH ratio. Make sure to leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. We're almost at 13,000 subscribers. I appreciate that. And check out the new PulseChain block explorer called lightbeam.xyz. Link in the description below, as well as Cypress.io, my new web development agency, to help you build your crypto dashboard, business landing page, whatever, a whole block explorer, whatever you need, I got you. Link in the description below. And I want to say congratulations to crypto, to Bitcoin holders. Bitcoin just hit an all-time high today of $109,833, sweeping the previous high from January 20th of this year, Inauguration Day, ironically enough, in the United States. By about $500 or so, we swept that high. So congratulations. This is good for all of crypto. I think this, and we'll get to the topic of the video in a second here, but I think Bitcoin making a higher high here is important, because one could argue that because of that higher high, now Ethereum can start breaking out. And if we are to come back down on Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto in general, we don't necessarily need to make a lower low relative to this 75K, but that's a topic for another video. Let's get right into the PulseChain ETH ratio. So most people are familiar with this, the PLS USD chart, more specifically the wrapped pulse DAI pool here on PulseChain. And that's great, right? If you're valuing your portfolio in US dollars. Now, some people have more, I almost want to say more high conviction plays, because Ethereum has not been performing all that well this cycle so far. Like, sure, it hit 4K or so, but look at Bitcoin. It's nearly double its all-time highs, its previous all-time highs, right? When it hit 69K or so. And right now we're looking at 109K. So what's 109 over 69? 58% above previous all-time highs, right? If that were the same for Ethereum, if Ethereum were 58% over its previous cycle all-time highs, it'd be sitting at $7,500, but it's not. It's sitting at around $2,500 or so, so about a third of the performance, which is why the ETH BTC ratio is about, 0.025 as opposed to 0.075, the previous highs. So it's been down a while. The whole reason I'm talking about this is because some people value their portfolio in Bitcoin, some people value their portfolio in ETH. If you've been valuing your portfolio in Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin's making new highs. So you're winning. You're doing really, really good. You're doing really, really well. If you're valuing your portfolio in ETH, that's why I said it's more of a high conviction play. It's believing in ETH a lot more, believing that it will recover and eventually start outperforming Bitcoin. And we can see that it has a little bit in the past month or so. We had our lows at around 0.18 and went all the way up to 0.26, and now we just had a little pullback here at 0.22. But if we can durably start outperforming Bitcoin on the Ethereum chart, aka the ETH BTC chart starts going up and the ETH USD chart starts going up more than the BTC USD chart, if ETH can start outperforming Bitcoin, well, then this sort of high conviction play of valuing your portfolio in ETH will have paid off in the long term. So some people do that, and the PulseChain ecosystem is inextricably tied to the Ethereum ecosystem. I mean, it's a fork of it in the first place. And second of all, as we saw in the strategic reserve, let me pull that up, strategicreserve.xyz, ETH reserve, we can see that the PulseChain sacrifice wallets have a lot of ETH, So again, you could say that the success of PulseChain to some degree is tied to the success of Ethereum, right? If Ethereum does really, really well, and if it did go to that $7,500 level, 10,000 more or whatever, if it gets above if it gets above 3,800, because that's where a lot of this ETH was acquired, allegedly, if you look on chain, right? A lot of cow swap orders going through at around 3,800 for most of this acquired Ethereum. 3770 something. Anyways, I digress. Because of that, got a little off track here. We're looking at the Pulse ETH ratio. Wow, that was a long intro. 5 minutes to get to the chart. Appreciate you guys, your guys' patience here. This is the Pulse ETH chart, right? So let's just look at it for a second, and then let's look a little at what it's been doing. Well, we can kind of ignore this launch candle because truly, if you zoom out, it's just a big old wick to the upside and to the downside. The data's probably a little corrupted there. Maybe a line chart would do it better justice, but not really. So we can kind of ignore whatever the heck was going on there while the pools were, I guess, being formed or calibrated or whatnot. But this is Dex Screener. If you want to see this chart yourself, all you have to do is go to the appropriate pool. And I can put that pool in the description below because I know it's going to be hard for some of you guys to find. Some of these are really tricky to find, some of these pools on Dex Screener. This one is the Wrapped Pulse Wrapped ETH, and this is ETH bridged in from Ethereum. So about 946 Ethereum bridged in, paired with about 55 billion Pulse. And these dollar values are wrong on Dex Screener when you invert the chart. So when you first go to that pool, it's going to look something like this. This makes a little bit of an educational experience. It's going to look something like this because the way Dex Screener treats this pool is it treats Ethereum as the I always forget which one is the quote token and which one is the base token. Anyways, it treats ETH as the top token backed by PLS. So you pretty much just get an ETH chart versus USD. So what you have to do here is, and you can tell, right, it's actually $2.3 million on each side when you see the default version of this chart, right? About 1,000 Ethereum backing 55 billion Pulse. So what you do when you get to this chart is you simply hit Wrapped Pulse. So now this is the Ethereum price denominated in PLS. So this is also a cool chart to see. I'll invert it in a second here, but this is also a very cool chart to see. Looking at charts inverted gives you a different perspective, right? When you can't necessarily intuitively see it immediately upon glancing at a chart, invert it. See what you can see. You might be surprised. So again, this is Ethereum valued in Pulse. So as you can tell, you could have bought an Ethereum over here for only 6 million Pulse. And this is when Pulse was really, really high. I think it was about 3x above baseline SAC rate. So each 6 million Pulse would get you one whole Ethereum. That's kind of crazy. And then Ethereum runs up against Pulse, right? Pulse goes down against Ethereum is what this move entails. Meaning you could have bought one Ethereum for 50 million Pulse. Wait, is that right? Could have bought one Ethereum for 50 million Pulse. And then again, we had our journey, right? We kept going, and right now, one Ethereum costs 58 million Pulse. Now, if you care about the Pulse ratio versus Ethereum, this is what that looks like. And now this looks more familiar to you probably because this has the structure, more or less, of the Pulse USD chart, right? With obviously some exceptions here, but this tells you, is your Pulse outperforming Ethereum? And again, if you're valuing your portfolio in ETH and you're trying to stack ETH, then this is the chart to look at if you're in the PulseChain ecosystem. And as you can tell, we have been making lower highs, right? It's pretty bearish in that sense. However, now this is the good part, almost 10 minutes into the video. The good part is we have, in my opinion, well-defined lows. Put a line through there, right? The first time we hit this 7 zeros and 1 2 2 2, found a bottom, and the RSI is a little screwed up because it's not the thickest pair. But I digress. We have these well-defined lows at around 1 2 2 2. Went up, came back down, went up, came back down, went up, came back down. Because of what the RSI does here, sometimes it helps to go on a longer time frame, so like a 3-day. Let's just look at the 3-day chart for now. Make the RSI a little bit easier on the eyes. So as you can tell, price action was finding support around these lows. Again, around the 1 2s, 1 2 to 1 3. And RSI was climbing faster than price was. Right, RSI went from 20-ish to about 40-ish. So price, or I should say RSI, doubled. Right, the relative strength index indicator doubled over the course of, what is that, late May to late August, about 3 months. So this you could argue was a really good accumulation zone every time we hit these lows here. Right, a good accumulation zone, because what happened after was a nice rally where the price of Pulse doubled versus Ethereum. Meaning, if you'd accumulated your Pulse here at these lows, and your goal is to accumulate more ETH this cycle, using Pulse as the vehicle for that, you could have doubled your Ethereum. Once right there. And guess what? We came back down to the lows. You know, not quite exactly, but almost. Came back down to the lows. Then once again, could have doubled your ETH stack. Once again, came back down to the lows. And guess what? Came back up. You could have doubled your ETH stack. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. So you could have 8x'd your ETH stack over the last year. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. So where are we now? So let's get rid of some of these drawings. Where are we now? Well, we're about at the midway point between where this stuff happens, where you find lows and then you find highs. Now, something I find kind of interesting is the first time we ran up, we came back down, but we didn't come back down to these range lows. We came back down to the mid section or so between here and here, right? Between the 1.2s and the 2.4s. So we came to like 1.8, came back down to there. Then we came back up and it's sort of this double top kind of situation. And then we went back down. Kind of an M shape, right? Then once again, what happened over here? Came back up to the range highs, came back down, but again, we did not hit the range lows. Rather, we formed a double top and then came back down. Again, another M shape. We're just looking at patterns here. This is all speculation. No one, including myself, can tell you what's actually going to happen to any price chart for that matter. But I think it's very interesting and educational to look at patterns of what has happened in the past and then make informed, educated decisions about your portfolio. Again, none of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Anything I say is purely for entertainment purposes only. I digress. Went back up to the range highs. We came back down, but not quite to the range lows again. So what might happen, one may ask? Well, if we do the exact same thing we've done as these last 2 times, well, then we would come up, have a double top, and then come back down to the range lows. Now, are we forever stuck in this range? That is the question. And the obvious answer is no. Ideally, at some point, perhaps it's the next time we hit the range highs, perhaps we break them, right? And whether we break these range highs and rally off of them or not, I would imagine would be a question of what the broader markets are doing, right? So I began the video by looking at the Bitcoin price chart. Again, congratulations on new all-time highs. That helps crypto. That helps, in my opinion, coins like these, like PulseChain, other ecosystems, break their ranges, right? Bitcoin making new all-time highs, in my opinion, means ETH can run a bit, right? ETH running a bit means Pulse can run a bit. So breaking this range, one could say, you know, it's anyone's guess. Is it Ethereum crossing 3K? Is it Ethereum crossing 4K? Is it another number? I believe there will come a point where PulseChain will break these range highs and go higher. And hopefully we can start testing levels that we've seen before, right? Like this high over here. And that'd be a nice triple from these range highs. Get rid of some drawings. Let me just clear all the drawings for a second here. So this is our range. Once again, you could have doubled your Ethereum 1, 2, 3 times if you'd simply bought the range lows, sold the range high. Bought the range low, sold the range high. Bought the range low, sold the range high. But again, it's anyone's guess whether we do another M like we did twice, But even in that situation, we would still go up from here, right? Even if we were to just make an M and then come back down to the range lows, that would correspond to about a 40% run from here, 38 or so. Yeah, about a 40% run. So what would a 40% run on the USD chart do? This is assuming a stable Ethereum price while Pulse runs versus ETH. That would put us at 4 zeros and a 6. And that would be higher if Ethereum goes up versus USD, and it would be lower if Ethereum goes down versus USD. There are a lot of ways that ratios can move depending on what the two individual coins are doing versus their USD pair. So for example, Pulse ETH can go up on an ETH rally where Pulse rallies harder than ETH. Pulse ETH ratio can also go up if Pulse USD simply stays the same while Ethereum's going down, right? And then there are ways this can go flat and can go down in the same way, right? Like if Ethereum goes up but PulseChain goes down, like if Ethereum goes up versus USD and PulseChain goes down versus USD, then that's when this chart starts tanking. For example, over here, I haven't actually looked at what happened there, but why not? Let's pull it up. Sometimes I find the search bar kind of annoying. You know what? Excuse me, guys. Let's just forget that. But you get the idea, right? There are many ways the Pulse ETH ratio can move depending on what ETH USD and what Pulse USD are doing. So let's get back on track here. We are in the middle of this range that we've been in truly ever since April of 2024. The low was defined in May of 2024. So it's been about exactly a year where Pulse ETH ratio has been in this 2x range. Now, one other interesting analysis that I like to look at is a Fibonacci retracement, right? If you define the lows as this first low over here in May of 2024, what I find very interesting is that the range high is actually defined by the 0.236 level. So from a Fibonacci perspective, according to this dip right here, this is also a very important level. So it's an important level on the Fibonacci retracement. It's an important level just based off clear price action where it seems to be our range high. But this level, this 236 level, again, is a very important level that we would want to break if we want to see Pulse continue to go higher. One more fascinating thing I want to share before I end this video is this uptrend, right? This uptrend right here. Now you can draw this line a number of ways, right? Just like I was saying, you have some well-defined range lows, but you can also draw it as a sort of uptrend, right? Range lows, high, whatnot. I'm not going to repeat it, but over here it was a sweep. It was a sweep of the range lows if you look at it from this sort of uptrend perspective. It's a very, it's a very non-steep incline, but it is an uptrend nonetheless on these highs, which you could say was invalidated by this sweep, or you could just say this was just sort of a fake out, right? It was a pretty deep fake out. It was about a 30 or 40% dip from the trend line itself to the actual wick. Let's look at that real quick. Yeah, about a 30% dip or so. But we came back above it and we held it as support, not once, but twice on this 3-day chart. We look at the 1 day, you can see it. Whoa, I don't know what happened here. A red God candle to the upside. Yeah, Dex Screener's funny sometimes, man, especially with inverting pairs. As you can tell, like $1 under $1 for 55 billion Pulse and 1,000 ETH. I digress. Let's go back to our 3-day chart. It's much cleaner, much prettier. So, swept the lows, came back up and found support twice, and now we're moving up. I think this looks pretty good. And again, if we do another M then we would be going up another 40% or so if we do an M and come back up to the range highs. So are the range highs in the cards? Yes, of course. Are the range lows in the cards? Of course. And what actually happens next is anyone's guess. I just thought it was interesting to show you the Fibonacci retracement, showing you how the range highs are the 236 level, showing you how we've done this sort of M formation twice already, and how you could have been able to double your ETH stack using Pulse as the vehicle for that. Not once, not twice, but again, 3 times. And if you sniped this Pico bottom, then it was a little over 2x, right? But yeah, I just think it's interesting perspective to look at charts relative to what you're valuing your portfolio in, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's USD, because it tells a different story than just the USD chart itself, and it can give you a slight edge in the market if you know how to use these tools and these ratios wisely. So that's it, guys. That's the Pulse ETH ratio. I hope you enjoyed the content. Again, check out lightbeam.xyz if you want to explore PulseChain, right? The newest block explorer for PulseChain created by myself. A lot of cool things there. And yeah, check out cyphers.io if you want the skills that I used to build sites like these and more to build your own site. And yeah, both links are going to be in the description below. Again, Bitcoin, congrats on all-time highs, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.